Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is meant to be a quick video between the P14 Gen 2 as well as the X1 Carbon. I was in the market for a machine, a lightweight machine coming from my heavy P50, P53, this is the P50, my work machine and so on. So I wanted a personal computer that I can use for another 6 years. I've had my P50 for about 6 years and I wanted to see what would be something that's portable. Having a P50 and P53, you can see the power break. This is about 1.5 pounds, about 2 pounds. And comparatively, the X1 Carbon Gen 9 is just phenomenal, right? Lightweight, portable, and very easy to carry around in terms of portability, which was one of the biggest decision-making factors for me looking at a new machine. Now, I saw a lot of videos on YouTube about the X1 Carbon, and this is meant to just show the difference between the Carbon and the Gen 2 P14s, which I didn't see many videos about that particular laptop, as well as any comparisons between the two, even though they're priced the same. So this is about $1,500. That's about $1,500. So it's $3,000 of machine, over $3,000 of machines sitting in front of me. One of these is going home, and at the end of the video, you'll find out what. If you don't want to wait, the spoiler is I'm keeping the P14 Gen 2. Now, one of the reasons I'm doing that is because there are differences between the two. And I've made this little slide here to try to do this in one take because I don't want to spend a lot of time editing. Most of these videos end up being not published just because I don't like editing and wasting time doing that. Let's talk about the space and the size difference. So the P14 Gen 2, which is at the bottom, and the X1 Carbon, it's pretty much flush on the side. It is about a pen's width difference between the two. So the X1 Carbon is a little bit smaller. About a big pen. This is a big pen. I have a Sharpie here, and the Sharpie is actually too big. It's not going to stay because it's too, there's not enough space. Now on the side, it's perfect for a Sharpie pen, right? So if you want a frame of reference on the size factor, this is one of those Logitech kind of USB plugs. It will fit in there. So that's about the difference between the two. That's largely achieved through bezel control, so that you'll see that in a minute, where the ThinkPad X1 Gen 9 has a very small bezel on both the sides and on the top. So that makes a difference, which you'll see in a moment. But beyond that, it's noticeably lightweight. So the Gen 9 is about 1 pound, is 0.75 pounds lighter. Now, I didn't know what that would mean because I never held an X1 in my hand, and unfortunately the shipping lead times for these are very, very long. And after getting in, this was the first thing that came, and coincidentally they both came at the same time. It was just so refreshing. This feels like you're holding just a book in your hand, easy to put into my backpack. I wouldn't even notice that I'm carrying this with me throughout the day. And after getting it, obviously I was more concerned, okay, like how much heavier is the P14 going to be? Is it going to be that much of a difference? Like, what is this 0.75? What does that actually mean? And honestly, at least in my opinion, coming from something that's like 6.5, 7 pounds, both of these are acceptable, right? If I'm between the two, pricing the same, and I'll talk about some of the things that end up making my decision, in addition to the weight, which is not a factor at the end of the day, for me at least 0.75 pounds doesn't make that much of a difference, right? If you're really sensitive to weight, perhaps, but you also want to keep other things in mind, which became decision points for me, like the components, right? When I buy a machine, I'm looking at how can I buy a machine it's going to last me for several years. As you just saw, this is one of the things. The P14 Gen 2 does not allow you to be opened with one hand. I have to use two hands because that hinge is very tight. And the X1, comparatively super easy, right? Easy to open and close with one hand. I don't know when that will ever be really a factor, except for making a YouTube video with one hand, trying to do this in one take. But for anybody that's curious, that is the case. I think I've seen videos talk about that, but at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. Fortunately, I have two hands that I should be able to use for this. So screen-wise, screen quality, you'll notice a big difference right off the bat. This is some fingerprint protection. Just quick port changes. Why is fingerprint not recognized? Let's put my password in. Okay. Fingerprint reader up here, integrated with the power button. This has a dedicated fingerprint reader. About a day of use. This is literally 24 hours old, both of these machines. So already some smudging and stuff here, so I think that's normal. I'll knock this out because I think this is going to be, if anybody's curious about the differences between the two, in addition to ports, which as you'll see here, the Gen P14 has a RJ45 port, which is an Ethernet port, as well as a micro SD slot. If I'm not mistaken, it also has a difference in the USB connectivity, where the USB on the X1 has more USB-C Type-C ports. This one has traditional ports, so if you want to have the USB connectivity, you do. Now, the bigger changes are here, right? The green is what I think is worthwhile calling out, which is the P14, you get the Nvidia graphics card. It's not a great card for gaming or anything, but you can do data science work, you can do some slight lightweight compute, GPU activities, and further the display. Now, the biggest thing that's not represented here is this was available to ship, right? The X1 was a custom build, but you can also get the same configs with a build that's available. Usually, the big change is the 32 gigs of RAM. Now, this is soldered RAM, you can't upgrade it. This is 8 gigs is soldered, but 8 gigs is a free slot. You can do whatever you want in there. And that's going to be helping with longevity of this particular machine. Further, display. If I put the high-end 4K display, that's about 4 months of waiting, which I don't want to get. Same thing if I got 32 gigs of RAM, which is possible to do a custom build, but it's about 4 months of waiting. Now, the graphics card, it's not negotiable in the sense of you're going to be stuck with Intel's graphics, default graphics, UHD graphics, Intel Xe graphics, and you have no other choice. So for those things and all, everything else CPU wise, everything is all the same. You can see the part numbers here. You can pause the video if you want to take a look at these things. All this information is available online, but other than these two things, pricing is the same. So for the same price, you get Nvidia graphics, you get better screen with higher, brighter screen at the end of the day, and also upgradable RAM. And so when I'm looking at all things considered, trade-off is 0.75 pounds, right? And so this video is something I can't describe, which is the weight. And just believe me when I say it doesn't make that much of a difference when it's 0.75. If you're super sensitive on weight, perhaps, but if you're a regular person, doesn't make a difference. Power brick, USB-C for all of them, coming from this brick, about 2 pounds, a pound and a half, huge, right? Everything is better than that brick that I've carried around for forever, especially with 2 machines. So I have one for work, one for personal, about 15 pounds, another 4 right there. So that's a lot of weight, about 20 pounds just in the backpack. That's like your carry-on's max weight, right? And I had to take that with me everywhere I went. Very not nice. So this is a refreshing change. Now, beyond those components, maybe you can see, I'll put it at the same angle here. Both of these displays are on max brightness, and I'm gonna hit play. This is the TSO mountain video, which hopefully will work. Let's see if I can go full screen. It's a beautiful video, and I highly recommend you check this out on Vimeo, TSO photography. Let's see if I can get this to sync up somewhat. That being said, the screen makes a big difference. The one on the right, the 14, is much brighter than the other one, and it's beautiful. And at night especially, you can see the difference between the screens, and it's roughly the same, but it may not be easily distinguishable between the two. But just believe me when I say this is noticeably brighter. Matte displays, definitely get the matte displays. I got a touchscreen on the P50 because I thought I would actually end up using it, and I haven't. I think the glare at the end of the day, you can see a little bit of glare already in the sunlight. Usability, it hurts it, right? And so I would highly recommend anybody in the market indifferent about matte, go for the matte. Don't get the touchscreen. The touchscreen is only $30 extra if you're doing a custom build. I don't think it's worth it. I skipped out on this particular custom build. Another thing to keep in mind, which you won't really see in videos and you won't know unless you have these next to each other. Let me show you the P50 first. P50, older school, you have spacing here. You have dedicated keys here, which makes a difference. When you're just kind of hanging out here, there's a ridge. You can see this little line. That is not present on the X1. X1 Carbon is just flush. Right, there's no line, it's just flush. Kind of sucks. It is an inferior mouse compared to the P14. This has, you can see a little line, a little ridge. This is more pronounced, makes a big difference. Even here, you can see a little red. The red is like barely aligned. There's also some flaw where it's one side is a little bit bigger than the other. For my prior, I think it's here too, for my prior kind of scrutiny of these laptops.
But that's something to keep in mind. The keyboard, pretty much the same. The keys here are a little bit bigger than the keys here. The X1 Carbon, they've tried to make it more condensed, and like, you know, one of the ways they achieve that is making the keys smaller. So this feels more traditional. Like if I'm using this next to each other, they're identical, right? The P14s is almost exactly like my P15 or my P50 workstation. Obviously I miss out on the keypad, dedicated keypad, which is going to take some getting used to, but it's more survivable than this. I feel when I've been using this, I'm hitting the wrong keys. I'm a higher tendency to hit the wrong keys. So this feels just more comfortable, especially if you're coming from an established ThinkPad product, like a workstation machine, like the P50 or similar lineup. So anybody that's in the market for a machine, I guess the big takeaway here is, all things considered, if weight is the biggest factor for you, X1 Carbon. Although know that lead times are going to be longer. If you're not getting like a corporate discount or something, you're going to probably end up paying a little bit more than what would be best. 32 gigs of RAM, max it out, get the matte display. But I don't think the matte display, I don't know if they have the 4K and matte. This one has 4K and matte, which is nice, which is what I have. Keyboard is a little bit better in the sense of just spacing wise. This little ridge thing, which I don't think anybody's going to be talking about, makes a big difference, right? And so you'll notice this if you have machines next to each other. And having tried these, and I'm looking for ways like which one should I get, which one should I not keep, makes a difference. So this, all things considered, the RAM, upgradability, graphics card, as well as the screen overall for the same price point makes a difference, especially additional connectivity, which really at the end of the day doesn't really matter. Casing, just to cover it off, last 10 seconds. If you get the 14 case, you will notice a difference because the X1 Carbon is so much smaller, as you saw in the beginning of the video, that it will move around more. So this is sitting on the Lenovo case, ThinkPad case. So hopefully this is helpful for anybody that's in the market. If you have any feedback or anything, let me know. Hopefully this is one take and I end up publishing this. Thanks for watching.